All right, what is going on, y'all? It is the Caveman live streaming for our post game Monday night showdown that we had between the Rams and the Bengals. It was an interesting one. That is one way to put it. Poor Matthew Stafford. I mean, we can start with that. Raleigh left some thoughts right before I came live. He was sitting in the lobby. He said Rams blew every opportunity they had to win. It's why they aren't a good team. And Bengals maybe got their rhythm back. We'll touch on that soon. But we'll see. Did they get their rhythm back? I guess is the big question. Here's a void on 3 disaster. Beat Rams. Okay, that's what I want. Did the Rams blow their opportunity? Did the Bengals find the rhythm? I'm not too sure the Bengals found their rhythm tonight. LS says my sleeper redrafting put up 211. Holy shit. I gotta go check out. I'm gonna, of course, like I always do for my Discord, call go ahead and leave the highest scorers and whoever's still in first for each league tomorrow when I get the chance to look at it. But that's awesome. Dylan says Vegas made the call on Puka receptions. They must have, dude. They must have. I think Sleeper, shout out Sleeper. I think they were doing us a favor by not posting Puka receptions because they refused to post it prior to the game. They didn't even have the line out. So I think Sleeper was doing us a solid. They're like, you know what? We know Puka's not going to hit the line that everyone else is posting tonight. We do not want our users to fall for it. So we're just not gonna post it at all. So shout out Sleeper for not posting the Puka receptions line for those of us to fall into the trap, because that's what it ended up being, that's for sure. After having like 220 target games and all of a sudden getting 5 or 6 in this game. Yeah, so let's get into this one. We have a victory on the part of the Cincinnati Bengals, taking this one home 19-16. It was I won't even say a snooze fest. I mean, it was a lower scoring game. It certainly had its moments. It just is a game that the better defense ended up coming out on top. This was a defensive battle. It was won in the trenches, and Lou Anarumo deserves so much credit for once again another masterclass he puts on with his pressure packages, and he is able to take advantage of what was a struggling Rams offensive line, bring Matthew Stafford to the ground a ton, and ultimately was the biggest reason why they won this game. I mean, Jamar Chase had a great game. Joe Mixon actually ran a lot harder than I feel like I've seen him run in a long time, but Joe Burrow struggled. The offense struggled, and this game is not won if it's not for the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals and Lou Anarumo. So that's where we'll start. We'll start with the Los Angeles Rams. Some of my takeaways from this one. They were doomed from the start. The Rams were doomed from the start. They were unable to run the ball. That was really the biggest surprise for the Rams offensively so far, in my opinion, has been their ability to run the ball at will. This game, they weren't able to do that. It didn't even seem like they attempted to at times. It seems like the Rams really strayed away from trying to establish the run game. Kyron Williams only had 10 carries. They had a total of 10 carries with a running back tonight, which is very unlike them given how the way they started the season. 10 carries for 3.8 yards per rush. They certainly were not getting the help on the ground that Matthew Stafford has been getting over the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Puka was nowhere near the factor he has been. And a lot of this just really has to do with the fact that the offensive line got absolutely devoured. Like Dylan says, Hendrickson and Hubbard and Wilson, for that matter, with 2 interceptions, were just dominating this game. It was a theme that carried throughout the matchup. Matthew Stafford was sacked a total of, I think, 6 times tonight. Matthew Stafford was totaled 6 times on the ground for 48 yards. The Rams offensively managed to go a whopping 1 for 11 on third downs. The Rams went 1 for 11 on third downs and lost by 3 points. So as bad as that is, the fact that the Rams struggled the offensive line injuries, had the offensive line injuries and struggled up front as much as they did, went 1 for 11 on third down, could not run the ball. Given all of the negatives that the Rams endured in this game, the fact that they only walked out of here with a 3-point loss on the Bengals' home turf is almost a win, in my opinion. Like, if we're looking at this, if we're taking the moral victories out of this one from the Rams' perspective, this is almost a win. This is as close to a win as it's probably going to get. only losing by 3 to the former AFC. They didn't win the AFC Championship last year, but obviously, but from a team that has been typically seen in that big game, that's almost a win. So if you're Sean McVay, if you're the Los Angeles Rams, you you can't be that upset with this performance. The biggest blunder, though, I'm going to share my screen here and show you guys where I really thought this game was lost for the Bengals, because they did make it a 3-point game late. But I think this is where they really screwed up. Late game situation, you're down by 10 points. You have what was about 6 minutes left on the clock. I think they only had one timeout at this point as well. So, yeah, timeout number 2. They have one timeout left. It's 4th and 5 on their own 30, and you're down by 10 points. You're probably not getting a second possession here, or you're probably not getting 2 possessions more to be able to get the 2 scores that you need. So you probably need to go for it in this situation. And I was shocked that Sean McVay did not, give his team the opportunity. And the Rams did what they had to defensively as well. They managed to get that quick 3 and out, get right back on the field, and drive down the field and score themselves. But, if they convert this 3rd and 5 or this 4th and 5, they get down the field and who knows, kick a field goal. This game is, looking a lot different. This is where I really think they lost. Kicking the ball away with 6:09 left on the clock on a 4th and 5 with only one timeout left. That's really the biggest thing. Just having one timeout was really the biggest factor for me personally. I think this is where they really lost. They perfect dream scenario defensively on the following drive. You get the Bengals 3 and out, 2 runs that go for a loss, and then a punt. You could not ask for a better defensive stop from your defense. And, they go back on the field. They took a little bit too long scoring, that's for sure. But the game is completely different if you at least give yourself a chance on this drive specifically. So, yeah, Sean McVay with a big, almost Josh McDaniels moment, if you will. I don't think the decision was as obvious in the situation, but the fact that he decided to punt here was very shocking to me. And I think this is where the Rams ultimately lost this game. But from the Bengals' perspective, I think this is where most of the meat is on the bone. Like I said, they walk away with a win. Well, they go into this game, right? Joe Burrow was a game time decision. I'm not sure it was announced that he was playing until like 6:30, 7 o'clock Eastern. Maybe a little bit sooner than that. But it was pretty damn late that they finally announced that Burrow would be starting. And they took a massive risk. I got to find the stat. There are not many teams that have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. So obviously that was in the back of their mind. Maybe I can find the stat. 0-3 playoffs. Let's see. If I can find the stat, I'll show you guys. I don't think I can. Oh, yep. Here we go. Okay, here's the stat. So this is obviously what probably tilted the Rams or the Bengals to obviously play Joe Burrow in this game. Only 6 NFL teams have made the playoffs after an 0-3 start. Texans, Bills, Lions, Chargers, Buccaneers, and Jets. And only one post-2000, only one post-2010, only one post-2015. So this clearly had an impact on whether or not Cincinnati was going to play Joe Burrow. With this statistic in mind, I was pretty confident that he would start. But nevertheless, you are announcing him starting 2 hours before the game. He's got this calf issue. And despite these things, you still go out and with a very puzzling offensive game plan. Joe Burrow, despite his injured calf, threw the ball 49 times. 49 times he threw the ball tonight. And that doesn't even include, two sacks. So he dropped back 51 times in this game, Joe Burrow did. Up against an Aaron Donald-led defensive front behind that offensive line. And you are dropping back 51 times with your injured franchise quarterback who you didn't even think was going to start 2 hours prior. This was bad practice. It was one hell of a risk for Cincinnati to take to play him in the first place. To go balls to the walls and have him drop back at this rate was, not even a risk. It was just stupid. It ended up working out. As much as it was a disaster to have him throw as much as he did, they did a good job of manufacturing Jamar Chase, manufacturing touches for Jamar Chase. That was really what they deserve credit for offensively, if anything. The game plan was suspect, but for the most part, they were trying to get the ball out quick. For the most part, it was going to Jamar Chase, and it was working out. So, like I said, if there's any credit to be had, it was the offensive game plan on the part of Zach Taylor to manufacture Jamar Chase touches, because he was all over the field. He was lining up all over the formation on the outside from the slot. There was a clear-cut effort to get him the ball tonight, and it was the best decision they could have made if they really were going to have their injured quarterback drop back 51 times. So I guess you take the good with the bad. Joe Mixon, like I said earlier, I think this was the best I've seen him run in a very long time. Only averaged 3.5 yards per carry, but for the most part, those were some pretty important yards. I thought Joe Mixon actually had a pretty solid game, at least from a surface level perspective. But the MVP award for Cincinnati, in my opinion, is either going to Jamar or Lou Anarumo. Probably Lou Anarumo, if we're being honest. But 51 times for a quarterback that you did not think was going to play 2 hours prior. This is not ideal. And he, throwing for 259 is great. No, but he still struggled. It was a clear struggle for Joe Burrow tonight. He was not too mobile in the pocket. He was having a hard time, getting away when he had to. They even ran a rollout at one point, which was extremely, extremely puzzling. Running a rollout with a quarterback that is playing on an injured calf, probably not the best idea. 19 points are 19 points, but this is only a victory because of the defense. And if you roll out Joe Burrow in this game and you lose, it doesn't get worse than that. Then you're probably not playing him next week. No way. So I'm trying to pan out what the season would have looked like for the next couple of weeks for Cincinnati had they lost this game. So you drop to 0-3, right? The following week you go to Tennessee to play the Titans. You're probably not rolling Joe Burrow out against that defensive front. And you probably drop to 0-4 then. Your season's pretty much shot. I think this was easily the biggest game for the Bengals in the year, and it probably will end up being the biggest game on the year for Cincinnati. But they definitely did not look good. Definitely was not a good showing. Over 300 yards of offense, but it was an ugly 300 yards. Tom says Bills-Dolphins about to be the 2018 Chiefs-Rams game. We'll see. It's either going to be that or it's going to be, our average Thursday night football game where there's 20 points combined put up. No in between. We're either going to have 90 points combined or we're going to have 20 because that's just always how it goes. Farkas says, shout out to Bengals defense for winning me my fantasy week. Well, speaking of fantasy football, I hope that all of you guys had better luck than I did tonight. Just on a quick side note to go on a tangent, I play in a lot of fantasy football leagues. I lost one game by less than a point. I lost another game by less than 2 points, another game by less than 2 points. So that's, I think, 3 games I've lost tonight in a matter of that were separated by less than 5 combined points across all 3 games. So that was great. But the kicker, so I'm not sure if you guys know what a guillotine fantasy league is, but long story short, a guillotine fantasy league is every team, you build your team, there's 18 teams, and every week the team with the lowest points for is chopped, and their team goes on the waiver wire to be purchased with the free agent auction budget rule set for fantasy football. So you can bid on the players that go up for auction. And I was on the brink of elimination. I needed to survive A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown could not get 21 points. That was who I was going up against in guillotine. And we are at A.J. Brown is 20 points. A.J. Brown is 20 points. The Eagles have the ball last second. This is what they do. So let's look at this. We have, can I pause this? I don't think I can pause this. We have a 4th and 2 A.J. Brown lined up, and they throw this ball on 4th and 2 with 30 seconds left. I don't think I've ever seen, I don't think I've ever, in my 22 years of living, have I ever seen or heard of a team throwing in that situation. Yes, I lost on that play. I was cut from guillotine because for some reason, the Eagles decided to throw to A.J. Brown, and this got him the extra point that he needed to cut me from guillotine. Like, why are you throwing here? 4th and 2. What is there to gain? What are we doing? I mean, if A.J. Brown goes down and gets hurt there, how big of an idiot does Nick Sirianni look like? I'm going to try not to get worked up about this because I want to stay on track with the Bengals-Rams game. But why? I don't think I've ever seen anybody throw in that situation in my life. So I'm cut from my guillotine league now because of that. I am just so hurt. And Rams were, yes, this is also another true statement. If Tutu Atwell did not step out, 100% would have won one of my fantasy games as well. Let's go see if I can find that real quick because I didn't think he stepped out either. I did not think he stepped out. Let's see. Tutu Atwell touchdown. Let's see if I can find it. Tutu. How do you spell this guy's name? Okay, here we go. Okay, that's an awful camera angle to use. There we go. All right, let's see if Tutu steps out. This would have won me a fantasy game. Of course it didn't. Why is this so loud? Oh, man, it's so close. Like, is that enough to say that he stepped out? Like, I mean, it's not clear, but I don't know if you can say Tutu steps out here. Like, that to me looks like he's in. Like, the original angle, yes, you can say maybe he stepped out, but this angle also shows you, at least in my opinion, that he didn't. Like, that, is that clear and obvious? Yeah, he looks out. I mean, it's close. It's close. I guess it's just like one of those things where, like, that to me looks in. This to me looks like he's in. It's just one of those things where is it clear and obvious to overturn to him being out? It was called a touchdown on the field. Can you make a definitive call to say that is 100% the wrong call that was made on the field? It needs to be overturned. I think the whole clear and definitive or whatever they say is a complete load of shit. I have seen so many calls this year alone get overturned that I did not think were clear and obvious. That they just pulled it out of a hat and said, you know what? That's getting overturned because it kind of looks like it. Like, what did they say? What's the exact verbiage or what's the phrase they use? Clear and obvious. I think that's pretty much what they say. This to me, I don't know. I don't know if it's clear and obvious. It just looks like that foot twitch. This isn't the best angle. Like that to me, that looks in. Other angles look out. And I think that's when you go with the call on the field. At least that's my opinion. That's when you go with the call on the field. But they didn't. Yeah, but like I said, I was cut from my guillotine league because Nick Sirianni decided to throw the ball to his star receiver on the most pointless play in the history of football. I don't think I've never had a worse beat in my life than this. I'm just so confused what the thought process was. I've never had a worse beat ever. And I don't know if I will have a worse beat. Just sick. But that Tutu Atwell touchdown that would end up getting called back would be the only one that the Rams see until the very end of the game when it was pretty much out of reach. Matthew Stafford dropped back a total of, 39 times. Matthew Stafford managed to drop back 10 less times than Joe Burrow. and still get drilled 4 more times. Poor Matt Stafford. The offensive line for the Rams was quite clearly the reason why they did not, ultimately come out on top in this game. True, false. I'm going through the timeline. I always like to go through the timeline of the, of the game and see what everybody is saying. Let's see if we can find the trending tab. Clear all. Let's see what's going on. Just go to my homepage. It's all football anyway. Rams offensive line lost them the game. Yep, pretty much. This runway is clearing for, that DeAndre Swift becoming a top 15 fantasy back is not something I really thought I had on my bingo card. All right, let's look up Rams real quick. Yeah, everybody's talking about the Tutu Atwell. The Rams are 0 for 10. Yep, that was what they ended up finishing. No, they finished 1 for 11 for third down efficiency in this game. They actually went 1 for 1 on fourth down, though, for what it's worth. But I mean, really, what else is there really to it with this game? There really wasn't much else. There weren't too many plays other than that Tutu Atwell play that I thought, wow, that could have went one way or another. Like I thought the pick by Logan Wilson that looked to be on the ground at first, that was the right call. I mean, this was a fun, but not so just no fireworks. Like we like fireworks, right? Tonight, the fireworks just weren't there. The Bucs-Eagles game, same thing. It was just kind of a lame duck defensive battle for the most part, both sides of the ball. But tonight was, just your average primetime night for NFL football. Just the explosive plays, the fun, the entertainment factor just isn't there for these games. It feels like, at least in the early portion of the season. I think the most exciting play was when Matthew Stafford hit Puka on that deep ball at the, later on that final drive. Other than that, I really don't think there was one or two plays where I was like, wow, that was fucking awesome. Like, I can't really think back to a play where that actually was the case. Trying to see if there really was anything else to touch on, because I really don't think there was. Pretty much cleared up all my thoughts already. This is just not a Cincinnati Bengals team that scares me. Last year, we saw the Bengals. I think the Bengals started off 0-2, and then they managed to bounce back. This year, they started off 0-2. They managed to bounce back to get to 1-2 here, but this is not looking like a championship caliber team. And I know we had a lot of concerns about our Bills to start the year after the way they lost to the Jets. And I know it's a long season, and the Bengals can very easily turn it around. It's just right now, to me, there are things going wrong with this team offensively that I feel like were not a part of what was going wrong originally. And the main issue being Joe Burrow's calf. Who would have thought that when it originally got reported a few months back during training camp that it would end up being such a prominent issue for Cincinnati leading up to this point? Because through the first two games, it was said that he's just not able to put any power into his throws. He's not able to really step into much. And that's ultimately, I think, what is dragging down not just the passing attack, but they just can't attack vertically the same way they typically are able to. Like, we haven't seen the big plays down the sideline to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. We haven't seen, the long balls where T. Higgins is going up and head topping somebody. We haven't really seen that. This is a Cincinnati Bengals offense that feels like they're in a box constantly because we know they struggle to run the ball. So they're limiting themselves to their intermediate to short game. And when defenses are able to compress this offense to that, and they're able to get to Joe Burrow quick and consistently, we get the product that we've been seeing from them as of late. A group that cannot get the ball. If the ball's not out in 1 to 2 seconds to Jamar underneath or a tight end underneath, then Joe Burrow's probably getting sacked. And then, They take their one or two deep shots down the field, and they're just not connecting the same way that they usually do. And that's really the bread and butter to this entire Bengals offense is the dink and dunk, and then take the shot up the sideline to Jamar or T. And I don't think we've seen a single one of those really throughout the season for the most part. T. Higgins tonight specifically was absolutely atrocious. He had a couple drops. He ended up leaving the game for cramps at one point. He went up for a long ball from Joe Burrow, and he threw the defensive back on the ground and drew an offensive pass interference penalty. T. Higgins did not look great. And Jamar Chase, like I said, did most of his damage underneath. I think he had one ball that went for like 20 plus yards through the air. Otherwise, everything else was just quick. Not more than 10 yards down the field. Everything was just manufactured underneath to get Jamar Chase in space. And that's what you have to do. That's what I've been waiting for Cincinnati to do for the first couple of weeks as Joe Burrow continues to struggle. You got to get the ball out fast. You got to find a way to manufacture touches for your best players. And, finally, Zach Taylor and that offense was smart enough to figure that out tonight. And had they not, they probably don't score more than 10. If Jamar Chase didn't have the impact he did, if Jamar Chase wasn't lining up all over the line of scrimmage the way he was, and they weren't getting the ball out quick to him the way they did, they probably put up 10 points tonight. And is this a formula that continues in the future? Who knows? This is a formula that worked tonight, but it's a formula that will get adjusted to by opposing defenses. They understand that they're not hitting the long balls right now. They understand that they can't get their ground game going. So now Cincinnati's going to walk into that game against Tennessee, and with an injured Joe Burrow, they're going to be sending the Hogs down Joe Burrow's throat. And if they're not able to take advantage of that weak secondary deep down the sideline outside the numbers, then I can very easily see Cincinnati dropping that game. The only reason they didn't drop this one is because their defense outplayed the Rams offense. I don't think that'll happen next week. I don't think we see a masterclass from Lou Anarumo to this extent against the Tennessee Titans. It's going to be a game I have to mull over. I'm going to have to think about it long and hard. But for right now, I'm not liking the optics for Cincinnati against Tennessee next week. If that's the product we're going to see, I would expect them to really struggle. And considering the fact that the Titans will be able to run the ball, they're not going to struggle running the ball the way the Rams did tonight. So if they're going to be going up against Derrick Henry and that rushing attack, they're going to have to be able to score when they have the ball, because the time of possession will obviously be a factor here. And in tonight's game, they were, if I'm not mistaken, they were lucky enough to pretty much dominate that statistic. And sometimes that doesn't matter, but in a game like this where points are hard to come by, time of possession is pretty important. I'm not liking where Cincinnati is at right now, and they do not have enough wiggle room to really drop that many more games in such a competitive conference, in such a competitive division. But lucky for them, we saw the Ravens lose this week. Steelers won. The Browns also did win, but it's still tight. They're still well in the running. It's just right now things don't seem to be improving, and the next divisional matchup that comes up on their schedule is going to be the biggest game of the year. So we'll see. We'll see how they respond. We'll see what Zach Taylor is able to cook up for this offense as they continue to struggle with the deep shots, as Joe Burrow continues to struggle to stay healthy. But for right now, like I said, I think if you're a Rams fan, if you're a Los Angeles Ram player, coach, fan, I think you should be more than satisfied with tonight's performance, as much as you can be satisfied with a loss. Only losing by 3, considering the circumstances that you were playing under tonight. I think, it could be worse. It could be much, much worse. All right. That'll probably be my final thoughts. If nobody else has any thoughts, drop in the comments. I'll probably end it off right there. Like I said, guys, if you're interested in sports betting and you want to bet on some player props, go ahead and sign up for Sleeper Picks. The link is in the description down below. You get a 100% deposit match. You put in 20, you get 40. You put in 40, you get 80, et cetera, et cetera. And, you can help yourself enjoy games like this one. I was able to enjoy the 2 games tonight a lot more because I did win some money. Even though I was absolutely screwed over in all of my fantasy matchups, I was able to win some money in the process. So I guess it wasn't the worst night of all time. Nevertheless, though, those are my thoughts on tonight's game. I appreciate everybody for stopping in, and you will see me following Thursday night's game and that post-game live stream as well. You guys have a good night and go Bills.